Yeah, I can see your screen now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and the last session as we covered the usage of each files and folder and what role it is playing in the Angular project. So I hope it is clear for you. And if you have any doubts, you can ask now. So before we begin a session.
No, I have tried to set up the application in my system, and I
Okay.
have gone through this package file and all, and I found that in the node modules we see the webpack folder also.
Okay. Yeah.
But only thing is, I thought to learn few things about SCSS.
Okay.
SCSS and SAS are same or both are different? Because whenever I try SCSS tutorial, I
No,
get
only the
SAS.
syntax will change. The rest of the things will be the way of we declare the variable and with the way we access the functions only change. But the concept behind that, everything is same.
So you say that there is no separate tutorial for SCSS in that case.
No, not required because only the as for me, this all the syntactical and the conceptual wise, everything is same.
Okay, fine.
You no need to. I mean, SAS is not different. You can learn different between less and SAS and SCSS and pure CSS. Okay, it's all the one of the same thing. It's called a CSS preprocessor, but it's good to learn any one of them. Then after that, you can play around with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and okay, so we'll can use here as well and the terminal. I will just run the application ngserve, or we can use npm run start. Both are on the same. Something it is giving error. Think okay. So on the same port is already running with 4000. That is the reason. So it's compiling and okay, generated and shows compiled successfully. So now we can access the same thing. So by default, in my local I'll configure HTTPS, but we are not configured HTTPS, so it shows an error initially. That's fine. So this is a welcome page for the sample app. So now we have here. So this all we covered, right? Install Node.js, Git you no need, right? Because I think that is a basic one. And Angular CLI we covered, use IDE and Sophia architecture we covered, and what is the difference between SPA and MPA is done, right?
Yes.
Multi-page application and SPA, the single page application. And TypeScript while session only will continue. So what are the different things? If I start only TypeScript, right? So you'll get confused. Okay, so I mean as a class progress, I'll explain what are the things we need in this session. I mean in Angular development. So we'll cover all those concept while going on the day by day sessions. Okay, now we'll start the core concept of Angular, like so components. I think you heard about this component. The world is started from Angular 1.5 version. Okay, now we are currently, as of now, for the today, I mean in 2020 January, so we are Angular 8. We are into Angular 8 now. Okay, so the components architecture started from that side 1.5, but the way we coded earlier in Angular 1.5 and here is entirely different thing. Okay, so we can generate each and every the components, the services, and pipes and the directives, everything can be generated using a command line. For example, I'll go to your ngCli website. We can see what are the commands we can use it for generate different component. As of now, last time in the last session we started only the ng new. Ng new means Angular generate new project with the project name is this one. So if you want to go for deeper, now you can, this is Angular CLI. You can generate, we have different commands here to generate. Say Angular build my app means it will build the application using in production code. And you can generate what as I told earlier, you can generate a component, services, templates, pipes, everything can be generated. But even though it's best practice to initially you can create manually as of like this. So I think this is app has one component because app contains the root component. The app component is called root component of the Angular project. Okay, and each component contains one TS file and one spec file. Spec file is for unit testing. Okay, and SCSS file is for styling. So as a down the line, it converts into the CSS file and one HTML file. But how each and every files are interlinked? At the moment we say the component, all the files together, we call it as a component. Okay. So at the moment you see the component here, leave about the selector. I'll explain that later. What is that? Template URL. At the moment you see this template URL, so it basically starts from the relative path dot. I think you know about this one, right?
Yes.
Okay. App dot component dot HTML. Though this is a naming convention, we have to follow across the Angular project development. App dot component dot HTML. See how it is referred. This is the folder structure, and it is giving a relative path, and it search for app dot component dot HTML. So for this component, this HTML file is linked. Okay, and the same way this one style URLs, you can write here, you write here inline CSS as well as you can refer the external CSS file like this styles URL. And you can provide n number of styles because see this is an array. You can provide n number of files if you have, but it's better to have only one CSS file because you can include n number of files inside the SCSS files. I will tell you that later how to include the different CSS files and all those things. Okay, it's better to understand. So how the each file are interlinked at the moment we say Angular component. So is this clear? This one?
Yes, it's clear.
Only these two. And here we call it as a selector. Selector means in the external world of this component. Suppose for example, app is one component. If we want to refer this component in other component, okay, there we can use this app root. I'll tell you where it is currently used. But at the moment, you can refer this component using HTML tag. This is kind of a directive name. Okay, directive means kind of a custom defined HTML tag, which only can understand in the AngularJS. Finally, it compiles down into pure HTML tags and it will show into the browser. I will show you that how the browser renders and all. The moment you see this application Angular, so I'll click right click and I will go for debug. See here, app root, correct? This is not HTML tag, but still browser understand. How? Because it has here vendor.js means is completely, I will explain this later. It's all production code. Okay. Main.js is generated for our code is there, right? What we write in our this all codes. Okay. That will be converted into your main.js. Okay. Vendor.js means all the libraries like Angular, Bootstrap library, jQuery library, all file together will convert into one file. See, this file is little in the weight, the what size of the file is little heavy.
Okay.
If you see in the network tab, if you refresh, go for the say vendor file. So this is almost 213 byte, and see our main.js is 211 bytes. Okay. and all relevant. At the moment you start your application, coding and all those things, huge requirement if you try to implement, and the size of the file keep on increase. So for as of now, you can remember what is a polyfill is different. Style.js means all your styles code. CSS code will convert it into .js. As I told earlier, Webpack. So how it converts all our things into only JS file. See, the only thing it outputs is JS file, irrespective of any files. .ts,
We have
.js,
dot
everything.
CSS also, right? So ideally, SCSS
Because
should be.
see, that is how they configured. If you want to CSS file, you can convert it to CSS file. But the thing is, we in the element file, we don't have. Let me see this. We don't have any .css file which is included here because there is a difference, including of the JS in terms of CSS and this one. So at the moment you see
Okay.
this style dot, I haven't seen it, but basically at the moment you use SCSS, right? All the logic codes and everything, and it is easy to handle the dependency here. See, sometimes we write different CSS here. Okay, here we write in n number of components with different size. It is very it's not that easy to generate only one CSS file by merging, because you know the CSS hierarchy, right? CSS selector, that at the moment you import last one, it should impact that later. So it is very difficult to maintain in the CSS file. So that is the reason they converted into .js file. Okay, and what was I was explaining about this one, route component elements. See, and how you could ask the question how this app route is getting converted into, because we don't have any tag which is related to HTML. It's not a HTML tag, correct? So I'll replace this app route with any name, 1 2 3. Okay, so now I'll save. You'll get an error. I mean, I think page should not display. See, it's not error, it's the logical error. Okay. See, still I am saying able to see the app route, but where is my? I have renamed the app route 1 2 3, which is not there. Okay.
Yeah.
Where it is referred, you go to this index.html, which is referred here. See,
Okay.
in the body tag, which is referred here. So which is referred like a app route, but my component direction name is app route 1 2 3. So that is the reason it's not able to find that tag, hence it is not displayed. So now I'll use 1 2 3. Now you see the page. See, correct? Now I refer it, it's reflected here, and I display the same page. Is it clear?
So can you
Where we
say that it is like a shell that is getting created for us to load the app?
correct. This no, you cannot. I mean, use proper naming convention. It's not a shell; it's a directive.
Okay.
Because at the moment you correlate, you can correlate. I don't have any issues with that. If you use a proper naming convention, it is better to understand the Angular terminologies.
Okay.
Yeah, understand. This is a kind of a, I mean, component holder. This is a reference of that component. Okay, and this is a file, and this one. Here we included component. So where this is coming from? So this is coming from the library called Angular/core. You can go still deeper into this and all those things. You can see this all the Angular code only down the line. Okay, but we are not here to explore the Angular library here. Just we are using those Angular concept what they built. So component is basically a decorative, okay, an object which accept this all the parameters to define the component. One selector, template URL, and styles URL. There are many other things are there. Okay, view encapsulation is there, and the parent detection is everything is. But as of now, this is not required. We'll cover day by day.
Okay.
So basic component means this one, and here we come to the TypeScript here. This is completely TypeScript. So we have to refer in TypeScript. Okay. So this is called as a class name. Export class and the app component name. So how to inject this file? Okay, this is directly referred here in HTML. Okay, where is that? And index.html. Okay, index.html. But how is index.html? How it is related to that one? Because this guy does not have Angular code here, and we have written only this one. But how this component is internally referred? For that, we have to go to here. Here we have a module. This is app module, basically a core module. Okay, module is basically a holder of all your components. Okay, and here see we referred app component. Where this is referred at the moment you click, and this is a reference name. This is a reference name, app component. So app module is a core module where we can include all our components. Okay, well, I'll explain this later. It's not required. Only understand this app component is referred here, and we injected into the app module. This app module is being served by our main guy, main component, this one. So here our application is bootstrapping. So this is initial triggering point from HTML, and it serves to the browser. See, that is the reason we are using the platform related or the browser related library, the components here. So app module is basically our starting module or the core module which contains all our components. Is that clear? The structure is?
Yeah, so from index file, you're calling your main.ts file.
That internally handles by Webpack. There is no relation between this and this one.
Yeah, because I didn't see anywhere that
There is no relation between
this
this. Internally handles by this one. At the moment, see in index.html we included few files here, but which is not, we haven't seen. See, this guy has included runtime.js file and polyfill.js, style.js, but here we have not included anything. Are you able to see? So this is injected by a Webpack.
Okay.
So it resolves all the dependency, the cyclic dependency and everything, and it construct and generated a production code, and after that it inject to a HTML index.html. This is for us, this is the starting point. In terms of web terminologies for Angular, this is the starting point.
Okay.
So I think in the initial stage, in the initial classes, the moment you say this, all the terminology will feel confusion. But day by day, if you start hearing this, all the words, you'll be familiar about this. Now, as of now, don't worry. So understand the step by step. What is that? Okay. Now we have one component, and for that component, so this spec file we can cover this later. This is unit testing related. Unless and until you understand the JavaScript, this one, Angular is very difficult to understand the unit testing now. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we started this one and this one. Okay. Here we have few other declarations. So this is a component. So you are clear about selector, template URL, and this one. This is only can referred in where HTML pages, and this is can be referred in TypeScript file.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we go to module. Module is basically a holder of all the components, which is responsible for resolving the dependency for that module. Module is basically in terms of business unit. So for example, login component is one module where can include login page, logout page. And user is one module. There we can create our user creation page, delete user page, and access user page and everything. So in terms of business side and the development technical side, they're correlating the term. Okay, so we call it as a module here. App module is basically a core module which holds all other modules. Each module holds its their own components. It is this kind of a hierarchy structure.
Yeah.
Okay, and declarations means there this module is responsible for to hold this component. Okay, this is a directive structure. I'm sorry, decorative structure. It accepts an object, and this is a key, and this is an array. So it can hold n number of component. I'll show that later. And browser module is basically the dependency module which is required to bootstrap your application into a browser. Provider means if you have, for this module we need, if we need any services, okay, for that services we can inject here in the providers array.
Okay.
And bootstrap component. So this is our bootstrapping component. We are informing to a browser module, this is the component should bootstrap first. So we need, for example, we need one component at the where we initialize all our application related information like configurations, user information, everything can be fetched before application should render into a browser, correct? So that we can handle in the app component. So is it clear so far?
Yes.
So we'll create a new component, we'll see. So this is modules, templates and the components. So we'll create one component. Okay, I'll show you the shortcut for that. You can create manually as well. Okay, but for as of now, you can use, I will use this one, ngCli. Okay, now I'm in this directory, sample app directory. Okay, domain ng means Angular, G means generate, C means component.
Okay.
So I'll provide user, correct? Just I'll type a user. Let's see how it generates. See, it generated inside app folder user. So it created all the files, user.component.html, user.component.css, spec files and component.ts. The moment you see this, so everything is ready-made, app user. So this is a standard which is defined in some of the configuration file here. Okay, I think tslit configuration, it can change, but as for the standard we have to use app as a prefix for each and for every component. And user is our custom defined name. Okay, now it is created dummy component which nothing is there inside this HTML, nothing is there, just user works, and nothing is there in the CSS, user component specs, the unit testing file and user component. So at the moment I have created a component, user component, but where this is injected, see in the app module it is injected here.
Yeah, but you told that we can have a separate module for each component.
No, I haven't told that.
Okay.
I haven't told that. The thing is, you can include n number of components in one module.
Okay.
But the creation of module is entirely different. The thing is, we don't have any as of the requirement to create a different module now. We'll cover that later. For as of now, today we have only app module and few components are injected into that app module. So this guy app module is responsible for to deal with these two components because this is created in app folder and which has its component. So is it clear?
Yeah.
Now I need to refer, I'll delete this all, okay, in the app.component.html. okay, I'll just write a div. Okay, now type 1, welcome to Angular training. See at the moment I'll run it in ngserve before I saving. Okay, now I will save this file. See in the downside, it at the moment you press Control S, it compiles and it generates. See these files are generated, main.js, main.js map, and everything is generated. Okay, now if you see our application, refresh. See, welcome to Angular training. Correct. Now I need to inject this component. So before that, I will go later. Here I have some object. Now it will come to TypeScript part. Now I'll create just leave this. This is fine. Sample app. In the user, okay. Here I need some user information. Okay, I'll use ul. I think you're all familiar about all the tags. I'm assuming that. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
User 1, user 2, user 3. I'll save it. Okay. Can you guess the output? Still, it is not reflected. Why?
Because there is no linking. This is
Correct.
the
So this we have written HTML, and we have a component, but we haven't referred this selector.
Yeah.
Correct. So I'll copy this app user. I will go to my app component.html. Here I will refer that. Correct.
Yeah.
Now see user 1, user 2, user 3. Correct. Is it easy?
Yeah.
How we can use the component structure inside that this.
Yeah.
Now what else we need to cover here? Okay, we'll style some files. We'll style something for this. Okay, I'll use a direct UL. I'll go to UL tag, and we need some. So this is how it starts. Okay, you can use it whatever you want. And padding, I'll use something 10px. Okay, and I need to refer. Yeah, like see, I'm using directly here. So earlier in the CSS, how we use like this, right? UL, LI, like this, parent and children, but directly we can use here like this, one way then other is understand by default. Yeah. So list style, none, can use none. Okay. Now, so government see this one. Now style is gone. So right click it, inspect it, see here how the CSS we can see here. See, it is generated some dynamic, added some dynamic value. Can you see this? UL, L, and LI. So this is why it is referred this only. Okay, I'll copy this style. Okay, and I'll paste in app component dot here app CSS, and border I can add here as 1px solid red in the app component. Okay, but in the user I will add a different border 2px, okay, solid blue. Okay, which one will apply?
The parent.
Blue or red? See, blue is applied. Why? Okay. Because it generates the relation between this HTML and this component, the CSS, using this dynamic value. Okay. It generates some random value. See, the same style is written here. Okay, correct? Yeah. But this is not applied here. Yeah. Because it generates its own the hierarchy structure. So only that component file CSS can be applied to that component. To avoid to override this, we have something called view encapsulation. We'll try that. But for now, it is not required. Let's understand the basic functionality. Deeper, we can go deeper a little later, day by day. Okay. But still, we can override this. So now, the external CSS is not bleeded to the child component. I mean, its own component. So this basically wrapped its own CSS into its own component. It will not bleed outside as well. It will not bleed inside as well. Okay. External CSS will not impact to the internal components, and internal components will not go outside because it generates some dynamic codes. Yeah.
So if you remove SCSS for the child also, it will not apply the red one anyways.
Sorry, come again.
I mean, if you remove the SCSS part of user component, still it will not apply whatever is there in app component.
We'll just check what happens. I'll comment this. Let's see. No apply.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot understand.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
So now this is clear how to create a component and how to inject component inside a component.
Yeah.
So what else it is there? Models we can go later. Modules as of now basically it covered. Okay. Now if you understand this terminology, what is a component, what is directive, and what is a decorative, and how to create a component using command line. You can create component manually as well. Okay, I'll create now like, sorry, not here. I'll create user to see this user. Initially try to create manually. Okay.
Yeah.
So user to dot component dot html or ts will create first. User to component dot ts. There for that you have to include import what? Tell me component. Otherwise leave it. So we'll start with decorative. At I used to earlier when Angular came in the market, right? When it is established in the market, we used to create each and every file manually.
Oh, okay.
Component component. Okay. See, it is starting auto import from this library. At the moment I press enter, see it is imported. So this is a beauty of TypeScript and the Code Visual Studio. No, alias. No, alias selector. See, I can use any name. 1, 2, 3. It's not standard, but as per the term, the TypeScript standard or the Angular coding guidelines, this is good to refer. This can I can share the link of Angular coding guidelines later. Once you're familiar with all this
Okay.
terminology, now what is that? Template URL, correct?
Yeah.
We can write template, internal template here. So I'll explain this inline template. Okay, and can use style. I can use inline styles. Yeah, like think. But a minute, inline styles. Think can use like this. No. Think gray. Yes. Think yes. Styles. Component style. Okay. This is string array. Think can write like this. String. Like that and write some div. I forgot. And directly can access using the string, it seems. Okay. I'll just check how to use inline. I forgot the syntax. Okay, I'll cover that later. We can write inline CSS as well. I forgot the syntax. I'll refer in net and I'll tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now what next? Okay. Now what we need? Selector template is done. And what? Can you remember? Selector is done. Template is done.
Module.
And tell me, I can write the
You have to export something.
export is after that. Export.
Yeah.
Okay. and export component. Okay, we'll see. Export class implements. Okay, now we have to refer one more thing. Export class user to component implements ng on init. On init. So this is a lifecycle hook. I'll explain that later. Now we have a constructor for this. Okay, and we close it. You to format the file, Control A and Alt Shift F to format.
Okay.
What is saying, user to component is incorrectly implements interface on and properly. So now we have to initialize it. Ng on init. Okay, now it implemented properly. Now we'll go to something we missed here. Can you able to recall?
That is the styles one.
One style is pending, right? Okay. Now I'm writing inline CSS. Sorry, this one. Div itself
template
here
and
only. Inline
custom.
template. Okay. So I'll use app user 2 or user 2 1 2 3. I'll use user 2 1 2 3. Now so I'll use p tag. This is custom defined user 2, not custom, manual component, user component. Okay, now I'll format it. So it is saying, see, the moment you see, the selector should be prefixed with by app as per the standards, but it's not a error. This is a logical error. It's not a logical error. This is syntactical error. Okay, now here also it shows use single quote instead of double quote. Okay, I'll use this is all guidelines.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so this is done. It should display, right? The moment I copy this one, and what I have to display? SCS I don't have, and HTML I don't need. HTML I don't need. Okay, because I written internally here, and spec file also I don't need as of now. Unit testing. Okay.
But you
only
should call that directive in your app component.
Correct. Now I'll copy this component. Okay, component name. I'll go to my this guy where app component HTML. Here I will refer that. Correct.
Also, you should include it in module also, right?
Yes. At the moment you see still something went wrong, right? Uncaught error. Template first error. User 2123 is not a known element. Why it is not a known element? We have included everything.
We
Thing
haven't
is
included in the module.
correct. User 123 is a web component. Then this is leave it. We need to intimate to some module. Correct. This is completely component is created, but we are not referred anywhere to that project.
Yeah.
There is no link. We not even established the link. So it is saying user 123 is Angular component, then verify that it is part of this module or not. Now I'll go to app module. Now I'll import user. I'll write it here directly. Okay. What is that? User 2 component. Correct. At the moment I press, it refers its own relative path. Now let's see. See, now it is included. There is no error. This is manual user component. Now we'll search inline CSS in component. I forgot that inline CSS for Angular component. Okay. Just check. You see here. think, okay, this is like a string,
Like,
correct? I tried it, but let's see. Okay. Go to this styles, and it's an array. Come here, and this one. And what is we have a div, right? Div. Width, some 200 px, and height, some 200 px, and we have some border for that. 1 px solid. Right. Let's see, it's going to work or not. Still, it is not working. Something went wrong.
you are referring it as dot div because it's not a class.
Sorry. My bad. See, now it is referencing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can write inline style as well here, and you can write inline code as well, and you can use any component name. But make sure that at the moment you create a component, it should be referred to the relevant module. Otherwise, it won't understand. So we referred it here, but it is not compiled down into a module. Now it shows an error. User 2 is 1, 2, 3 is a component, but it's not being referred in any of the module. Please refer it. It will show the proper error.
Yeah.
So any doubt so far?
Yeah, I think we can include that user 2, 1, 2, 3 even in the user component, right?
Yeah. We can use, like, I can cut this. Okay, I'll go here. I'll change here as well. So I can wrap inside one like this. Not here. You have to write it here. And this one, you can write it here as well. So at the moment you right click, see, it is be part of this one.
So you have to write it in the HTML, not in the component.
Write in the HTML.
Yeah, because previously you have written it in the component, right? app.component.ts.
As a component.
No, okay, probably I'm confused. Then yeah, I will have written.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I was trying. You can use it here as well, like this. In HTML, you copy this. You can refer. If you write this HTML1 here as well. If you use template, right here also you can refer. Template, and I'll remove this. You can use it here as well. So only this is referred, but this component is not loaded. This is not loaded because they are written or referred my own component. I mean other component here.
Okay.
See, this quotation is not a string, the single quote and double quote, okay? Here. This is called template literal. Okay. Like at the moment we have a one keyboard, right? One letter at the keyboard.
Yeah.
So we have a tilde operator, and beneath that one more operator is there. That is called string literal.
Yes, yeah.
That one have to use.
Okay. Along with the shift?
No. If you want to use shift, the tilde will come.
Okay. So directly if we press
Directly
it, we'll get that
string literal.
String literal. Okay.
See this one here. That is called string. This one, multiple string line. You can do it like this here. Can use string as well. I think. Let's see. Let's try. What happens? You're not able to use like this multiple line element.
Okay.
It shows an error. So if you want to use string like that, let's try. To be in one line, it seems. Okay.
Yeah.
Why it is not shown? Something went wrong. User tooth is not referred anywhere. Oh, it's not referred anywhere. I deleted it. Okay, go here and I'll add it here. See.
Yeah.
So you can use string as well, but if you want to use the HTML styling over there and everything, like you need line by line, use multiple string literal.
Yeah.
Like this. You can write multiple string manipulation. Okay, and what the one concept I left over here is this one for today. Ng on init we have written and constructor we have written. Okay, so at the moment component initialize, so at the moment we include here, right, the component.
Yeah.
It's basically it has to go under different life cycles of its own component. It has its own stages to render it to the HTML. At the moment you include this component or you referred anywhere in your project, the first and foremost method will trigger is this guy, constructor. See,
Okay.
I will put console.log step 1. Okay, and ng on init. I'll explain this, what is ng on init later, but I'm giving as of now because since we included this in the console. Step 1, step 2. Step 1 is first constructor. The moment you include any method or any component in or any referred in your project, the first method will get invoked is the constructor. After that, ng on it. We have a different life cycle components. Okay, ng on init is there, ng on changes is there, ng on destroy is there. There are many. It has its own usage. Whenever we need it, we have to use it. Not every time the same life cycle component is required. But
Okay.
ng on init, maximum time we use this.
Okay.
And we have to initialize some component, like you need some data, you have to call some services before the component should render. In that cases, we'll use maximum time ng on init. You should not use constructor for to initialize any of the related data to that component. This is just to create a reference of some services or dependency injection. So create an instance of that. Then only we have to use a constructor. Not for to call HTTP service to initialize a component, we should not use constructor. So that is the reason we have a separate lifecycle called ng on init. The code which is written here still can be written in the constructor. Okay, but we should not use that. That is a guideline which is explained as in the Angular library side, and as for the best guidelines.
Okay. So
you have a yes, tell me.
Yeah, basically we use a constructor when you have dependency with other if you want to refer something from other files rather than the component of this particular component.
In future, in the complex requirement, we have to depend on few services.
Okay.
Or few third-party components. So for that component, this kind of importing classes, okay, to one component to resolve another component. There we have to initialize that component or that services.
Okay.
Creating instance like this, you know, constant object. I'm giving you just hint. Okay, new operator in JavaScript, and that class name. This one. Okay, just a class. This is called instantiation of data class. Correct. So that can be done in the constructor.
Okay.
Not in the ng on init.
Okay.
So that is the reason they are separately written constructor method.
Okay.
So is this clear?
Yeah.
Creating a component, and what is a constructor, and what are the different way of writing a templates, and how to include components inside a components, and what are the different styles we can write, and how this internal CSS will not bleed to external world, and external CSS will not bleed to internal components,
Yeah.
and different way of creating a components like manually and using NGCLI as well. Both are covered. And what next? Inline CSS and through external CSS as well.
Yeah.
So these are the concepts we have covered today. So shall we close it for today?
Yeah.
We'll cover tomorrow what? So components, templates, modules. Models have not covered. I will cover that tomorrow. Okay. Models is basically defining user-defined data types. For that, we need it. And still we haven't covered the core features of Angular. It is coming in the next class. Okay. What is interpolation, binding, property binding, we'll cover it. But make sure that we have practice before we come to the next class. And if you have any doubts, make a list of questions before we begin next class. You ask all the questions, we'll clarify. Unless you attend this class and you won't practice at your home, so there's no useful. You have to practice on your own. You have to get your hand dirty and make it work on your own. Then try to get errors. What is that? What is this? That, this, alter anything, load it, there, that. It shows the different errors. Okay. Now understand why it is throwing an error. I wanted to show that error, right? There's app user 2 component. So that kind of error information you have to understand carefully. So understand the framework better.
Yeah.
Okay then. See you tomorrow.
And will you share the YouTube link today itself?
Yeah, because I'm recording at this one in the system, so I need to mock that few information. So I need to mock and I need to upload it.
Yeah.
Okay. For time being, you can refer this angular.io. Sorry.
I'm already referring that only.
Referring. So you're facing some difficulties.
For now, yeah, I just set up the basic application structure and all, which is pretty straightforward. So there is no difficulty in that.
Okay.
Today I'll go through
for sure,
all
I'll share
the
the link.
jargons that you have used. I'll just go through all those jargons. Probably I'll understand much more about that. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
No problem. Bye.